is also thinking. All reasoning is also intuition. All observation is also invention. Well, that's a perception quote by Rudolf Arnhem. So what is perception? How does it affect the way we interpret our world, how we view ourselves, and what impact does it have on the contribution we can make to this beautiful world? Well, to answer some of those questions, I have with me Dr. John Demartini, human behavior specialist and author. Welcome back to our beautiful city. Such a pleasure to meet with you again, Dr. Demartini.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me.
When I think of perception, the question that comes to my mind is, who am I? And some of the concepts that come up for me, there's a lot of them. And I think, okay, that's interesting. But who am I really? And then there's nothing. How important is perception to understand the self?
In order to answer that, I'd like to develop something. Every individual lives by a set of priorities, a set of values in their life, things that are most important to least important in their life. Whatever's highest on their value, they are spontaneously inspired to fulfill. And whatever that highest value is, their identity revolves around it. So if you're a mother and your highest value is raising beautiful children, if somebody asks you, who are you? They'll say, I'm a mother. If you're an entrepreneur and you're dedicated to running a business, if somebody asks you, who are you? You'd say, I'm an entrepreneur. So whatever is highest on your value, you revolve your identity around. Your being revolves around that. But whatever is highest on your value also determines how you perceive the world. Because you're doing what you can to fulfill that highest value, and it's dictating and filtering your reality and helping you perceive things that help you fulfill what it is that you intend. And in addition to that, all your decisions are based on the highest value, and your actions are based on your highest value. So whatever's highest on your value, whatever is most meaningful and inspiring that you're spontaneously inspired to do, and your life revolves around, literally dictates not only your destiny, but dictates your reality. So your perceptions are basically a reflection or an expression of what you value most and what your identity is. So you're trying to fulfill this highest value, and so the quality of the life that you live is based on the quality of the questions you ask. And your questions are impacting your perceptions. So if somehow you're walking in a mall and your highest value is children, you'll spot children's things. You won't spot business things. But if you're a business leader and you walk in a mall, you won't spot children's things, you'll spot business things. So you're literally filtering it around. So your filtering is based on the questions you ask. Because if you ask, what it was I would love to do today, and how can I do that, and what do I see in my environment, your questions are going to determine what you actually notice. So, and how you interpret things. So your perceptions are basically a reflection of what's highest on your value and your identity. And it's unique. No two people have the same perceptions. No two people can see the same world.
That's very interesting. So in other words, you're saying we're also masters of our own destiny. We construct ourselves. We choose how we perceive ourselves. And that will also impact on self-esteem as well.
Well, exactly.
And
because
how we feel about ourselves.
If we perceive things supporting our values, we open up to it. If we perceive things challenging our values, we close down on it. And if we are doing things that we feel are helping us fulfill our values and we feel hopeful, our self-worth goes up, our confidence goes up, our leadership tendencies, our inspirations go up. If we feel that we're doing things and in an environment that we can't get what we really want in our highest values, we get hopeless and not hopeful, and we end up feeling lesser self-esteem, and we start to feel like we can't do what we want in life. So our beliefs about ourselves are based on how well we perceive things in our environment as helping us or hindering us in our value system.
How reliable is perception?
That's great. Because everybody has a different value system, whatever they're perceiving is totally different. So what's actually objectively there may not be what everybody's seeing. And so if we perceive something that supports our value and we become enamored by it and admiring of it, and even infatuated with it, we have what is called a confirmation bias to justify all the benefits it brings us, and we ignore the downsides. If we see things that challenge our values, we get another confirmation bias on how negative it is or how bad it is or something, and we'll withdraw from it, and we'll get another confirmation bias, and we'll be ignoring some of the upsides. Anytime we ignore the downsides for things we admire and ignore the upsides for things we despise, we're distorting things. And no two people are distorting it the same way, so none of us are seeing the same reality. When we distort that, our intuition comes in to try to readjust that. Our intuition is always trying to reveal to us the side we're ignoring in our awareness, to try to make us more fully aware, to assist us in helping us fulfill what's most meaningful to us in our life. So we're not only seeing a different reality through our perceptions, our intuition is trying to adjust those perceptions because they're usually biased, and is trying to bring us back to a more of a balanced perception, because anytime we're infatuated with something or resentful of something, whatever we're perceiving is running us. Anytime we have a balanced orientation on it, we run us. And we're liberated from the emotions, and we're able to be inspired by our mission, our highest value in life.
Should we be focusing on developing our intuition more than looking at our perceptions? Because to some degree, perception is also built, again, coming back to what I said earlier, on the unconscious mind, something that happened to us in the past that's deeply embedded within us, that we internalized, that we exaggerated, that we blew out of proportion, and that affects the way we react to situations.
Well, anytime we've had an experience in the past that we perceive as negative more than positive, or more positive than more negative, we have a biased perception. Because every event has two sides. They found out that the traits that we admire in somebody, if we wait a day, a week, a month, a year, we find out the downsides. The traits we despise in people, if we wait a little bit, we end up finding the upsides. Our intuition is always trying to make us reveal that. So if we have memories in the past that are imbalanced, they're going to impact our perceptions in the future, which again have been more biased. So we can have distorted perceptions stacked up on distorted perceptions, and we can create completely generalized exaggerations or minimizations of things and not see anything to do with what's actually going on.
And we can live distorted lives.
Live a completely distorted life. But our unconscious part is, our intuition is trying to bring the unconscious conscious and trying to make us see both sides of things. So we're not sitting there with emotional baggage, we're sitting there with gratitude. When we see, it's been shown that we grow most at the border of support and challenge. If we get both of them, we grow most fulfilled. But if we see one or the other, we have an emotional. And when the second we have an emotional, our intuition is trying to balance us to see both. And one of them's conscious, one's unconscious. So our unconscious and our intuition is always trying to reveal to us the side we're ignoring. So instead of living in ignorance, we live it with wisdom.
Now, I have this profound opportunity to always interact with you whenever you're in Johannesburg to speak to you about, on various topics. You always bring up perception, how it affects our levels of stress, how we react to situations, etc. How can we shift the perception so that we can react better?
Well, our perceptions are changed by the questions we ask. For instance, let's say we have an event that occurs and we think that's terrible. We think, oh, it's just terrible. But if we ask the question, how is this event helping us or helping me fulfill what's most meaningful to me, or helping me in my mission, or helping me accomplish what I want in life? If we ask that question and answer that, our perception of the event just changed.
And the problem is sometimes we react automatically because it's embedded within us. So to shift it, do we need to go for psychoanalysis as well, do you think, to go to that extreme measures to actually shift it? I mean, I find sometimes I just react. I don't stop and think. And it's later, once the damage is done, I think, oh my God, why did I do that? Why did I react that way? And then I go back and I think, okay, maybe it's because this is what happened to me before, etc.
Well, in our brain, we have a hierarchy. The most advanced, most evolved part of the brain has smaller diameter nerves that conduct slower, and in the more primitive part of the brain, we have larger diameter nerves that conduct fast. So it's designed for, if we're in an emergency where we got some predator or we see some prey, we have the ability to react quickly. So anytime we have a very volatile response, it's because our perceptions are very imbalanced. The more imbalanced our perception, the more primitive the brain, the more reactive we are, the more we can't consciously override it, and the more we act like the animal.
We sense danger when it's not really there, perhaps.
And it's designed that way to keep us from being killed, for instance. But if we stop and ask a question, in this moment that I think we see terrible, what are the terrifics, or what are the benefits, or what are the blessings? We can calm down the ratio of perception and move ourselves up to the higher levels of the brain and start bringing in reason. And our intuition is always trying to balance that and try to bring us back to reason. But our emotions are trying to polarize us and justify our wounds, you might say, or our fantasies. So stopping and asking a new question on how to balance our mind, what our intuition is attempting to do, with our reason, put the two together, we have the most powerful state where we're not reacting, we're acting wisely.
The opposite of that is when I tend to be a little bit more analytical, and I think, okay, man, You know, do we really have to always be politically correct? That's kind of like a thought that comes up for me. What about my intuition? Am I just trying to analyze so that I don't react negatively? How do I exercise my intuition? How do I feel through the situation so that I can get the appropriate response?
Well, we have three mechanisms. We have instinct, which is a feeling that is trying to protect us from predator. So anything that we perceive more negative than positive, more challenging than supportive, that we want to avoid is an instinct. Then we have impulse, which is anything we see more positives and negatives, more pleasures and pains, which is looking for prey. This one's avoiding predator with instinct. This is looking for prey, which is impulse. And then we have, that's the avoid pain, seek pleasure model. That's the animal model. Then we have our intuition, which is trying to show us within the pleasure, the downsides, the pains, and within the pains, the upsides, the pleasures, and trying to bring us back into reason. So our intuition has taken us from emotional states back into reason, where we can actually see both sides. Now, it's not necessarily analysis, it's just an understanding that nature has two sides. Mm-hmm. If you look very carefully, the thing you think is terrible, a day, a week, a month, a year, or 5 years later, it has some terrific in it. So instead of having the wisdom of the ages with the aging process, it's wiser to let our intuition reveal to us that side that we're ignoring, mm-hmm. and bring it back into balance so we don't overreact, but we act with an understanding, with reason, and more moderately in our actions. That's why it's considered a great virtue, moderation.
Sure, just one last question for you. Still on the subject of intuition, how would you define the feeling of intuition that can come up in a situation so that we know what it is and that we can react to intuition as opposed to the other feelings?
Well, if we perceive more negatives than positives, our instinct from our diaphragm down, it's a gut instinct. Our intuition is from the heart into the mind. And so what it's doing is taking the emotional feelings of instinct and impulse that we're trying to avoid and seek and trying to bring back a balancing act. Mm-hmm. Intuition, many times people confuse instinct and intuition. When they think, oh, I got a fear of something, that's not intuition, that's instinct. When we actually are able to look for the other side, let's say you're a woman and you're dating a guy and you're infatuated with a guy and you think, oh my God, he's the one, he's the special one. Your intuition is trying to say, he's too good to be true, there's got to be something, be on the lookout, watch out, don't be gullible. Don't lose yourself.
Experienced that many times.
Yeah. So what happens, your intuition is trying to point out to you what balances out your misperception that you're infatuated with, mm-hmm. to try to get you back in reason, because otherwise you'll sacrifice yourself for that infatuation instead of hold on to who you are. Mm-hmm. And the same thing when you're resenting something and avoiding something, your intuition is trying to point out the upside. Mm-hmm. The feelings of intuition are trying to take emotions back to inspiration. There's a difference. And many people confuse gut instinct with intuition because they think that they're the same, but they're two separate states of feeling.
I think for me, what I experience is that behind the chaos, there's a sense of calm. Would that be the intuition?
Your intuition is trying to help you see the hidden order.
There's a sense of calm that kind of is just there, that there's an awareness.
Yes. It's attempting to bring you into the awareness of a hidden order that's in your apparent chaos. Your emotions of impulse and instinct is your chaos. Your intuition is trying to calm it, trying to bring it back into reason, and trying to bring you back to love. So intuition is trying to take you back to gratitude, love, inspiration, and enthusiasm. And your gut instinct and impulse is trying to get you from sorrow and joy. It's an animal behavior versus more of an angelic behavior.
That was very insightful. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Demartini.
Thank you.